Hey, hey, it is I. It is me. I am me. But I wouldn't say that me am I. Doesn't flow. Anyway, what's the do-rag? Well, the do-rag is my hair is very long, much longer than it needs to be, and it's unruly. And a lovely young woman in the Philippines said to me, "Do you watch your live streams?" And I said, "No." And she says, "Well, you should." By which she meant that my hair is too long, and I sometimes wear a shirt that makes it look like I've got man boobs. So, on this very well prepared live stream, I have no guest. I have no material at the ready. I am just going to look at the chat and go blah, 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 blah. So give me something to blah, blah, blah about, and I will do that. But in the meantime, until somebody types something in the chat, let's have a look at my Twitter. Control room, there we go. Alrighty, so political get to know you. What is, wow, this is slow. My gender, well, guess. My nationality, I'm an American. Don't like that term? You know what it means, right? Ethnic heritage, mostly Irish. Religion, you know, well, I'll show you what I wrote. I wrote Protestant Christian atheist. What does that mean? Well, I wasn't raised atheist. And I'm not just some generic atheist. I was raised a Southern Baptist, so I'm a Protestant Christian atheist. Political party, no thank you. Political ideology, I would say mine is half-baked and perpetually half-baked. Never shall it be fully baked. But essentially, I'd say I'm a humanitarian pragmatist. I don't know what's going to bring about the desired end, but I have a desired end, and I'm open to exploring different ways of getting there. Mostly, I'm just not a pain in the ass about it. Okay, 7. What's 7? 7 is economic ideology. Yeah, still collating on that. Basically C6. Foreign policy ideology. I would describe myself as a foreign policy realist as opposed to an idealist. Just in general, I mean, all of these things are coming back to a point that I like to make, which is that I like results. I want humans to flourish. I want to foster conditions under which humans will flourish. What will bring that about? I don't know. I think it is a matter for experimentation and course correction rather than deciding in advance what's going to work and insisting on that for decades, in spite of evidence that it's not working. Who am I talking about? Everybody. Everybody. Favorite political leaders. So with political leaders for me are kind of like rock stars. Not that they're great, not that they should be worshipped or idolized, but rock stars shouldn't be worshipped or idolized. But what I'm saying is, just because I like the music that somebody makes doesn't mean that I'd really like hanging out with them. And the more I learn about the political figures that I admire, the more I think it's best for me to admire them at a distance, and the less I know about them personally, the better. But, all that said, I do like I guess his title is Prime Minister. Go ahead and go back to me, that's enough. I like the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Abiy Ahmed. I like him because he's a smart guy. He's into cryptography, and you know the Ethiopian government has partnered with HKIO, Hong Kong Input Output, or IOHK, I guess it is. That rolls better. IOHK, which is a company headed by Charles Hoskinson, the head of the Cardano project, and they're going to use the Cardano blockchain to track students and teachers in the Ethiopian public school system to, one, keep track of grades and educational achievements and things like that, but also to basically be a formal custody mechanism for ensuring that people who are applying for jobs or graduate school or whatnot, that the credentials, the educational credentials that they're presenting are legit. I think that's a pretty cool use for the blockchain. And I like the Prime Minister who, heard the pitch and said, yeah, let's do that. I don't know the name of the president of El Salvador. El Salvador has recently, their currency, their national currency is the US dollar. But now it is the US dollar and Bitcoin. Everybody has to accept Bitcoin. Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador. You can pay your taxes with Bitcoin. I mean, it is money. You can no longer argue, Kim Stanley Robinson, that Bitcoin isn't money. By definition, according to the actions of a nation state, Bitcoin is money. All righty. Let's go back to Twitter here. I love this. Check this out. Little infographic. different types of vlogs. Travel vlogs. Vlogs about animals. Vlogs about beauty regimens. Vlogs about art. Vlogs about science and technology and style. What do they all have in common? Alrighty, what else? This one's for you, Colin. Leslie, at Macy Sweetheart, writes, I am so sick of that level of ignorance and selfishness. If you're not going to wear a mask, then stay the hell home. You can be a carrier and kill other people. And if you're not part of the solution, you don't deserve a very limited ICU bed. To which I said, forget nuclear fusion. Someone needs to figure out a way to generate electricity from righteousness, our most abundant resource. Opinion on Rand Paul. Is ophthalmologist qualified to have an opinion on COVID? Well, ophthalmologist, is that an eye doctor? Oh, okay. So my opinion on Rand Paul, now that Ron Paul is gone from the scene, Rand Paul's about as close to libertarian as we're going to get, for an elected official at the national level. I don't trust his libertarian credentials as much as I trusted his dad's. To me, Rand Paul seems like a Republican who, he pays some sort of, I don't know if it's half-hearted or legit fealty to libertarian principles, but I just don't trust him to be consistent in the application of those principles, as I would have his father. His father, Rand Paul, I lived in Arkansas long enough to vote in 2 presidential primaries while I was there. And I don't remember which order these came in, but in one, I voted for Dennis Kucinich, and in the other, I voted for Rand Paul. But, never the mainstream candidate. Alrighty, what else? He kind of says, if I sign a paper saying I won't take an ICU bed, will these stupid people leave me alone? Because I will. Well, they'll leave you alone because they don't know that you exist. But they won't shut up. No. Self-righteousness feels amazing. It is a natural high, unrivaled by, heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, alcohol. Nothing's as good as feeling righteous. So, let's read this again. I am so sick of that level of ignorance and selfishness. If you're not going to wear a mask, stay the hell home. You can be a carrier and kill other people. If you're not part of the solution, you don't deserve a very limited ICU bed. The person who wrote that felt amazing. They felt amazing when they hit apply or send or return or enter or whatever it is that, sends that message out into the world. They felt so good. They felt so powerful. And then every time somebody clicked like on that, oh my goodness, their brain just lit up. Bing! You can't beat that feeling. So no, there is nothing you can do to placate this person. Here's a cool one. Check this out. I'm tired of being a specialist in infectious diseases and virology. Today I decided to become an expert on Afghanistan. All right, back to me. People need to see me as I bloviate. So this is obviously mocking people, who suddenly have an opinion about something they hadn't said anything about before. And, apparently the things that they're posting intimate that they've done loads and loads of research on this topic, and they're better informed on it than you are. And, this is making fun of these people. But at the same time, it's kind of cool that we live in a world where you're sitting at home or maybe you're at the office and there's a news story about Afghanistan and you have the resources to take in a whole bunch of information in a very short period about Afghanistan. And no, you're not an expert on it. You know enough to be dangerous or you know enough to be stupid. But I think it's good that we have access to all this information. I'm for it. All righty, Dryland Fish is in the chat. He says, nice William Burroughs inflection on the word heroin. I've spent a long time speaking in the Burroughs voice, usually not on camera or on mic, but we have a new type of rule now. Not one-man rule or rule by aristocracy or plutocracy, but of small groups of people thrust into positions of absolute power, controlled by circumstances which leave little room for decision. Hikani says, I don't like this meme. What if I did do enough research to form an opinion? Well, if somebody didn't like your opinion, they would still mock you for having it, and if they agreed with you, they would think you were smart. So, choose your audience. Which we don't actually get to do. Very strange. Let's see. I love this one. Let's go back to Twitter. So let's expand this. Some very successful, self-satisfied woman, I guess in her late 30s, writes, does anyone else feel like the live your best single life and be happy on your own advice backfires, especially for women in their 30s? Me, 37, female, professional in a big city. A few fancy degrees, a stable, high-earning job, my own condo, interesting/quirky hobbies, mountaineering, cycling, photography, travel a lot and to weird places, often alone, did Peace Corps after college, so I'm very comfortable being solo in foreign countries. I have friends from different stages of life, did several years of therapy, and so I like to think I have at least some self-awareness. Because people will ask, I do not have trouble matching/getting dates, so I don't think my appearance is the sole reason I'm still single, and I use recent pictures. I have pretty much the life I always wanted, except for a partner. And I've worked hard at building it, but I feel that the more successful and interesting my life is, the less men seem interested in me as a long-term partner. And the fewer men I meet could add to my life in a meaningful way. But just because I'm relatively happy alone and do not need a partner, go and do everything I want to do without waiting for someone to go with me, travel, buying a house, etc., it doesn't mean I don't want to fall in love any less than the next person. I'd love to have someone to share the ups and downs with, to explore the world with, to be a teammate and build a life with. Oh, and fulfilling sex on a regular basis is pretty darn nice too. However, it seems that the more I work on myself to make my current life great, the more it estranges me from potential partners. I've had men tell me that I'm easy to walk away from because I don't need them. I've had men say that my life feels too complete/full to have a partner, like there's no place for them in it. But to me, needing someone and waiting on someone are just signs that you aren't living a happy/healthy single life. I feel like all the things I do to make myself happy, healthy, and successful on my own, get that promotion at work, go to Mexico to climb some volcanoes, visit my college friends who live in different cities, sign up for a 100-mile bike ride, are actively hindering my dating prospects because Joe or Sam or Pablo doesn't value those things at all. Instead, I see the men that say that they want women like me actually picking the ones that spend more time on their appearance, hair, makeup, fashion, and more time watching Bravo, doing yoga, cuddling with their golden doodle. These women are waiting on a guy to travel. These women are waiting on a guy to travel or do anything by themselves, and are often honest about that. So that's her lament. The more interesting she makes herself, the more complete she is as a person, the less men are interested in her. No, stay on Twitter. Because Richard Hanania has a great response to that. 37-year-old woman, I feel that the more successful and interesting my life becomes, the less men seem interested in me as a long-term partner. To which he writes, you're just getting older. Sorry no one ever taught this woman how heterosexuality works. That's funny. All right. Hikani says, I don't like this meme, got there. Patrick says, greetings and salutations. Men want younger, attractive women. 37, you're over the hill, honey. All right. I'm going to say Patrick gets it. I mean, that's obviously what Richard Hanania is going for here. I also have to say that my girlfriend, whom I've never met, but talk to daily, is 36 going on 37, and at 53, I feel like I scored big time. So it's all a matter of perspective, I think. But in general, yes, men want young women with the right hip-to-waist ratio. All right, more comments. Give me more comments or I'm just going to talk. 37, you're over the hill, honey. No. Alrighty, well, let's see. Oh, speaking of Ron Paul, there's his dad. No, I mean, speaking of Rand Paul, there's his dad, Ron. His what if speech. I'd love to play this, but I don't think I can. Let's see. Biden, Harris, Jen, I guess that's Jen Psaki. Where are you? Afghans are literally throwing themselves off planes in desperation, and you guys are hiding/on vacation? To which I said, there's nothing Biden or his people can do to make the situation any less foobarred. The smartest thing for him to do, or perhaps the least stupid thing, is to keep mum. Anything he says will be damningly juxtaposed with images of Afghans hanging off of airplanes and the like. Anyway, Afghanistan. Gosh, what to say about that? Really, I'm just scrolling through looking for the funny memes. Here's one that I love. Check this out. I never said we should kill him. 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 Love it. Alrighty. Oh, this one. Obviously, it needs music. Come on. All right. Clicking on it just makes it stop. But check out this animation. It's a short loop. How short is it? See the tower with the purple lights on it? Look how it resets when the reflection of something occludes it. So we got 1, 2, 1, 2. It's a 2-second loop, but I could watch it for hours. Here's what I've been looking for. This one's for Alex. Y'all get any more of that less than $2,000 ETH? What's Ethereum sitting at right now? Let's take a look. 1 Ethereum is it sells for $3,208.10. All right. I need more in the chat, please. Love your interview with John Michael Greer. I have done so many interviews with John Michael Greer, I'm not sure which one you mean. You're talking about the video one shot in the studio? But I've been interviewing John Michael Greer since his book, Apocalypse Not. And I think I first talked to him in 2009. 2009, 2008, somewhere in there. But Kevin Lynn of Progressives for Immigration Reform invited John Michael Greer and I to Lancaster, Pennsylvania a couple of years ago, where he rented out a big professional TV studio. I mean, nothing against Falls Area Community Television, but this thing was shinier, bigger, shinier, with more expensive equipment. And they actually had professional makeup people there to, get rid of all of the yellow under my eyes and the red on my cheeks and make it look like I've got the same color skin all over my face. Let's see. Hikani says, any movies coming out to look forward to? Well, heck yeah, Dune. I mean, I've been looking forward to Dune forever. I'm sure I'm going to end up seeing it on HBO, but I'd love to see it in IMAX. Oh my goodness, would I love to see it in IMAX. Alrighty. But John Michael Greer, he's got a book out. His most recent book is called The King in Orange, and that's a reference to The King in Yellow, which it's not Lovecraft, but it's one of Lovecraft's, not even his contemporaries, but I think somebody who inspired Lovecraft. Who am I thinking of? Anybody in the chat? Are you faster than Google? Let's see. The King in Yellow. That is by Robert W. Chambers, right. And as, what's his name? The showrunner for True Detective. The first season, they really ripped off Thomas Ligotti's The Case Against, or the Conspiracy Against the Human Race, largely in the character of Cole, the Matthew McConaughey character. He spouts lines right out of Thomas Ligotti's book. But they also borrow from Robert W. Chambers, and very much at the end. You're in Carcosa now. How about this? This was a commission that I did. Yell, 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 yell. Instead of yelling at each other, shouldn't we be yelling at the CCP? I don't know that yelling at the CCP would do any good, but I like the sentiment. So I'm not the author of that, I'm just the illustrator. Let's see. The Critical Drinkers. Everybody watch The Critical Drinker? I absolutely love his videos. How to be a Hollywood creative today. 1, pick some old franchise with a loyal fan base. 2, remake it, but remove everything that once made it popular. 3, insult the fan base when they protest your creative decisions. 4, blame negative reviews on toxic trolls. 5, move on. And by move on, he means to the next franchise. Talking to you, J.J. Abrams. Although J.J. Abrams is not the worst in terms of inserting, woke political messaging into the genre of franchises that he is destroying. That's more of the Kathleen Kennedy thing. CCP, I would rather start with the Americans involved with the Wuhan Institute. Yes, like Dr. Fauci. I should say, what's his actual name? Fauci. That's it, Fauci. I hear the host of the Expat Files podcast refer to Fauci as Dr. Falsey so often. Falsey is what rolls out when I even mention the guy, which I almost never do, because here I am jabbering, talking, but I spend almost all of every day alone in my apartment in silence. If I talk, it's to the cat. And she doesn't have a lot to say about COVID or much of anything other than, I'd like a treat, I'd like to sit in your lap. That's about it. That's about all she has to say, which doesn't require much from me verbally. Hikani says, in B4, banned for talking about COVID. Not sure what you mean there. In B4, banned for talking about COVID. NatureBats Last writes, I'm waiting for the world to accept the liability of the CCP. Gosh, do I want to get into this? I suppose I do, since I started it. But before that, let's go back to Twitter here. The two-axis political tests. I like this one. So if you're left and authoritarian, envy. If you're right and authoritarian, wrath. Left and libertarian, gluttony. Right and libertarian, greed. And right down the middle, pride, sloth, and lust. Ah, yes. Where do I fit on this? Well, I hit all those, really. Maybe not pride so much. But I got all the rest going on, for sure. All righty. So, back to me. Here's the pride. Look at me. I'm on a live stream. Pay attention to me. Me. Okay, NatureBats Last says yes. Yes, absolutely, yes. Hikani writes, my goodness, I hate the 7 deadly sins. People always think it's actually a biblical concept. It's not. I'd like to know more. I would like to know more. So, China, the CCP. It bums me out that we are as dependent as we are on, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation? Is that the name of it? Basically, like half the integrated circuits that we need to make the modern world go come from, this one factory in Taiwan. And I'm told that the People's Republic of China's, the People's Army is designed from the ground up for one purpose, and that is to invade and conquer Taiwan. So we can't, we being the United States, we cannot afford to let communist China invade and take over Taiwan. That would deprive us of, chips. We need the chips. So, there's I think it's popular position that the U.S. government needs to take the lead in making sure that a chip-making plant like the one in Taiwan gets built here in the United States. And yeah, that seems like a good idea, but at the same time, it also seems like the prelude to saying, see you, Taiwan, good luck with that invasion thing, and bowing out, which I don't think is a good idea, practically and morally. We don't recognize them officially as a country, but we'll give them money and weapons. Actually, they don't so much need money from us. They buy weapons from us, but we will sell them as much as they want. And that's because, Taiwan is a very well-run, representative democracy, high tech. They responded, Taiwan and South Korea were the exemplars in, quick response to COVID in the early days. I don't really want to get into whether, people's pet opinions about how serious COVID is, but given that the world or governments around the world have decided to take it seriously, then, we should base the bar, the exemplar for effective action was in South Korea and Taiwan. They run a tight ship. All right. More in the chat. Type, people. Type, please. It's not a command. It's a request. It's an invitation. All right. Let's go back to Twitter. So we're just looking at my Twitter feed. As you can see, a lot of stuff about crypto in my feed. Oh, what I can see through all this is that I'm not retweeting as much art as I would like to. Here's a fun one. Wow, we're all the way back to the 4th of July here. Maybe I've even talked about this on a live stream before. But this is just such an amazing image. So here we have our little left-wing revolutionary. She's going to smash capitalism with her expensive high-end MacBook Pro here. But notice with the stickers plastered all over her MacBook, how do we know it's a MacBook? Because she was very careful not to cover that prestigious Apple logo. As she sits there in her combat boots, but with no socks, because she's not actually going to do any walking in those boots. They're not even really laced up, and got that expensive cup of bubble tea on the floor at her feet. But man, is she ever smashing capitalism on that expensive computer. Alrighty. Patrick writes, efficiency brains on Wall Street and in government got us into this pickle. Efficiency brains. I would encourage you to say more about that. I mean, I can speak on efficiency. Efficiency is an antagonistic property to resilience. You make a system more efficient by eliminating redundancies. But when you eliminate redundancies, then you're making your system more fragile. If you break a necessary part and there is no redundant component somewhere, because you've been so ruthlessly efficient, well, then your whole system has been degraded permanently, or until you manage to rebuild or fix the broken part. And, we certainly don't want efficiency really in labor allocation. We want some slack in the labor field. The efficiency, the relentlessly driven efficiency of Amazon fulfillment centers, that's a hilarious name, fulfillment centers, it makes them a living hell. I've seen documentaries about people, like when I worked at Amazon in the 90s, I was in customer service, but they sent me down to the warehouse, and at the time there was only one shipping facility for the whole company, and it was in South Seattle, or south of Seattle, down in the Soto district. And I went down there and, they set me to packing packages, and it was around Christmas time, and they had me gift wrapping them, and I was useless at it and super slow, But efficiency wasn't even a consideration. I wasn't there to wrap packages. I was there to learn how, procedures worked down at the warehouse so that I could be a better customer service operative, or what were we called? Representative, a rep, a CS rep. And I remember I was doing a very bad job and taking a very long time at wrapping this package, and this group of visiting Japanese business people who were on a tour of the warehouse came through, and they parked right behind me and watched me for like 5 minutes as I flailed around trying to do a decent job putting Christmas paper wrapping on a package that was going to be sent out. But these days, somebody doing that job in an Amazon warehouse, they have this flat screen right in front of them with like a 2 or 3 second countdown, and it's counting down to tell them, you need to move faster, you need to move faster, you need to hit this target, you need to hit this target, you need to hit this target. And they get that for 8 to 10 hours a day, just continuously go faster, go faster, go faster, go faster. And, why is that? Well, because so much of the process is automated, and you can push the machines to go really, really fast. And so, your slow component is the human component. So you've got to structure their environment so they are reminded every second of the day, you are being watched, your movements have been very carefully mapped out, you need to go faster. To do that all day, every day, even if you could just take away the physical pain, of doing that sort of repetitive labor at that fast pace full time, just the mental torture of that sort of relentless time pressure and just lack of humanity in the situation. There's nothing about your humanity that is of value to Amazon.com in that situation. It's just humans are still better than machines at grasping packages. If you have packages of various sizes and consistencies and levels of delicateness coming down this conveyor belt at you, humans are still better than robots and computer vision at picking those things up and not breaking them. Identifying, like you've got a robot brings you a shelf with 20 items on it, and you have a printed description of one, and you need to glance at that and in a second identify the right thing, reach out, pick it up, turn, and put it in a box, and close the box and push it on. Yeah, humans are better at that than machines right now, but the instant that machines can do it better, more reliably, and faster, well, then Amazon will have machines doing that. And, the part about you that you value about yourself, your experience in life, your ability to talk to people, to relate to people, maybe poetry that you've memorized, your encyclopedic knowledge of, sports or movies or music or whatever it is that makes your life worth living, and the thing that you like best about yourself and, you would like to cultivate in yourself, you would like other people to know this thing about you, that's the thing Amazon has no use for. You should just leave that shit at home. If it slows you down by a microsecond in reaching out and picking up the item off the shelf that the robot just brought over to you, leave it at home. So that's efficiency. That's my opinion on efficiency. I'm against it. Until it comes time to, until you point out that a lack of efficiency somewhere is costing me personally money, at which point I say, tighten that shit up. All right. Hikani says, do redundancies not just make something more efficient in the long run if done right? Do redundancies not just make something more efficient in the long run if done right? I don't understand the question. Do redundancies not just make something more efficient in the long run if done right? I don't know. No opinion. Alrighty. Alrighty, I'm in a mood to tell a story. Give me a topic, and I'll come up with a story on that topic. Autobiographical story. I'm not writing fiction live here. Give me a topic. All right, well, while I'm waiting for somebody to suggest a topic, back to Twitter, let's scroll. Oh, we've gone way back. I know I've highlighted this on a stream before. No plastic straws, turning off your AC, recycling, climate disaster as a result of unfettered capitalism. I think capitalism has some fetters on it. Not necessarily extensive or effective fetters, but it's not wholly unfettered. It could be worse. Let's just say that. It could be worse. Of course, that means things might be worse. They could get worse. All right, Zero Hedge. I always love Zero Hedge. Actually, that's not true. I've enjoyed Zero Hedge posts often enough in the past to say carelessly, oh, I always love what Zero Hedge has to say. I don't. Anyway, as the volatility of cryptocurrencies falls, we see the ability to earn a positive real return as one of the factors driving the cryptocurrency market to become more mainstream. Is JP Morgan? There's always new crypto projects coming online that are worth nothing, and people are looking to get rich quick. So there's lots of volatility left in the crypto market. Yeah, it's just the big dogs, the big players that don't move that much. But, the biggest of the big players, Bitcoin, has doubled in price in the last month and a half, so there's plenty of volatility left, I'd say. All right, the big deal about masks. Let's see. Anthony Rice says, the vibe in Seattle when you lived there in the 90s. So here's a story that leads into that, but it was the summer of 1996, and I was at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. I was a grad student, but basically I had run out of the only way I could be a grad student was I had a position as a graduate instructor. So I taught undergraduates, and I did that for 2 years, and that's as long as you can do that, unless you get a degree and move up to a new contract. And I didn't finish my degree, but I had friends who were moving to Seattle. I said, hey, mind if I tag along? I'll help you move and sleep on a couch at your place until I can, get set up on my own. And they said, yeah. So I drove a friend's car to Seattle. And I had all my stuff and a bunch of his stuff in the car, and he and his girlfriend rented a U-Haul. And for the first couple of days, I guess the first day, we were pretty much, in contact with one another. This was prior to cell phones, but every now and again I would stop and wait for them to catch up, and then maybe we'd have a meal together or something, or, spend the night in the same town. And then one time I stopped and waited for them to catch up, and they just never showed up. I waited a couple hours, and they never caught up to me. So I did the rest of the trip alone. That was probably like in Wyoming, somewhere around there. And so I did the rest of the trip by myself. And as I was driving into Seattle for the first time, like I was coming from Missouri in late summer, which is just miserably hot and humid and just god-awful. It's the worst time to be in Missouri, except maybe January. And so I drove from that into Seattle, and I'm coming in on, what is that, I-90? What's that northernmost of the east-west interstate highways? I think it's 90. And, you go through, like Redding. My Seattle geography is a little rusty now, but, there's various islands and bodies of water that you cross as you're driving into Seattle. And things just got more and more beautiful as I progressed toward my destination. And then I get into Seattle, and I'm there for the first time, and there is no GPS. There are no cell phones. All I have is an address written down on a piece of paper, and I had to find it. And I don't remember having any difficulty. It was up in the Green Lake area. And I found the place, unloaded the car, and boom, I'm living in Seattle. But at the time, the first few weeks that I was there, I was up in the Green Lake area, and I would take the bus either to the University District. I went to the University District a lot because they had a lot of good speakers who would come and talk either at the University Bookstore, or they had great free lectures in a big lecture hall on campus, and I took advantage of that all the time, before I got a job there. And I would also go downtown, usually looking for jobs, often looking for, often pursuing a job at Amazon.com. Amazon.com was the one time in my life when I did the thing you're supposed to do when, searching for a job or when applying for a particular job. I applied, and then I waited, and I heard nothing. So I called the HR department, and I said, hey, it's Kevin O'Connor. Put in an application. I'm just calling to check on things. And, I'd get a response like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, we're going to look at your application. So I did that repeatedly. And I'm pretty sure now that if I didn't do that repeatedly, if I didn't just hound the HR department, I never would have gotten an interview. But I did get an interview. And then I had a second interview. And then I had a third interview. The third interview was with Jeff Bezos. That's how small the company was at the time. But Seattle, living in Seattle in like 1996 was amazing. It was so beautiful. The temperature was so wonderful. The streets, just everything about it was beautiful. There were, if you were downtown, you had to deal with homeless people, but it wasn't anything like it is now. There was nobody living in tents, on the sidewalks of Westlake Center in Seattle in the 90s. You didn't step in human feces. It was just that hadn't begun yet. And it was just gorgeous, beautiful weather. And then it started to rain. And then the days got shorter and shorter and shorter. And it got to the point where I would wake up in the morning and it's dark, shower, drink coffee, walk the 2 blocks, from my apartment to, actually at the time it was more than 2 blocks. But, walk a few blocks in downtown Seattle in the pre-dawn morning darkness in the rain and work several hours, take a break, go outside, get some lunch, and that's the one time I would see daylight, go back inside, work for several more hours till I was, ready for brains just leaking out of my nostrils, just answering customer service emails furiously. And then I would go back outside to go home, and it's dark, and it's raining. And it did that every single day for months until we were about to cross a threshold. We were about to break the record for most days of consecutive rain. And then for one day it was sunny. We got no rain for one day. So we didn't break the record. And then the next day it went back to raining. And it rained forever until it turned to snow. The first winter that I was in Seattle, we had a serious, close the city down sort of snowstorm. It never happened again. That was the one time we got any sort of appreciable snow when I was living in Seattle, but it was full on. Anyway, Seattle was amazing. Loved it. I would not trade my time there for anything. Alrighty. There's nothing in the chat since Anthony Rice invited me to reminisce about Seattle in the 1990s. Anytime anybody came to visit me in Seattle, I would take them, we would walk from my apartment down to the ferry terminal and take the ferry over to Bainbridge Island and then just stay on the ferry and come right back. And, riding the ferry from Bainbridge Island over back into the city, particularly around dusk, to watch the lights of the buildings come on and just to watch the glow of the city just blossom, as you're on the deck of the ferry coming into city. And it was free for pedestrians. I don't know if it still is, but that was just the greatest thing. I would do that on my own, if I just had time. I made that ferry ride so many times. It was just glorious. Now, I just watched a video about, the homeless situation in Seattle, and the Seattle City Council and local government has stopped prosecuting, all offenses committed by the homeless downtown, and they allow them to set up camps, and just strew trash everywhere, right in the places where you've got tourists from all over the world who have come to Seattle to experience the Pike Place Market, or the waterfront, or the wharfs, the piers. And these are the places where the homeless are set up, trashing the place, doing drugs, fighting with one another, assaulting people, panhandling. And in this documentary, and the documentary was by KOMO TV, which is a news station in Seattle, and they interviewed some people from Tennessee, and I've lived in Tennessee. And the people from Tennessee they're bewildered. It's like, why are they allowed to do this? Why are they allowed to behave this way? Particularly right here in this place, which is, the tourist attraction of Seattle, the thing that is world famous, that people come from everywhere to have this particular Seattle experience. And you've got mentally ill, heroin and methamphetamine addicted crazies just running riot. And, the police are so frustrated because they're not allowed to do anything, and they know that anybody that they arrest for anything that happens, around that scene downtown won't be prosecuted. They won't even be held overnight, most likely. They'll just be released, so why bother? And, go to Nashville, Tennessee. You will not see that happening. Go to Dallas, Texas. You don't see that. It's not, this is where I've changed my mind. I have a friend who I knew, he was a friend of mine when I lived in Seattle. And his position was that, homelessness is not really an indication of the economic fortunes of the country. It's more just a question of, how does the local government respond to drug addicted and mentally ill people camping in public spaces? And in most places, it's not allowed. And in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, it is allowed. It's protected. And so all of those places, the tent cities are, they're blossoming. They're proliferating. And, there's, I remember seeing a documentary about homeless encampments in Los Angeles, and there was this one guy who I knew didn't, he just didn't fit. He didn't belong. He's this young man. He's fit. He's wearing like a Shinto priest outfit, with the very distinctive looking outfit with like the tabby socks and the hat. And he's got his tent set up in the park, and his tent is immaculate. It is beautiful and spare, and there's no trash lying around. And he's sitting out front, and I don't remember his exact posture, but it was a very sort of squared away, like self-possessed posture. And yet everybody around him was just in chaos, And yet all of these groups come to deliver food to the homeless and deliver all sorts of services to them in their encampments. It just encourages that behavior. So I've totally done a 180 on that. That no, these homeless populations are not. They're not a direct result of the worsening condition of the working class in the United States in the 21st century. They're really, their behavior and their conglomeration in these very high traffic, high visibility, in times past high pride, high beauty areas are the result of decisions made by local governments on how to handle that situation. And they've just piled on all the incentives for, homeless, drug addicted, often mentally ill people to come and congregate in these particular places because they know they won't be hassled. They know that they will be with people who see them as people. Most people, they pretend not to see the homeless. The only people who don't do that are, police, people who come to provide services to the homeless and the other homeless. They see one another. They recognize the humanity in one another, so they like to be together. Can't blame them for that, but boy, it makes for some really unpleasant conditions in places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. All right, Anthony says, yeah, same thing in Portland. It has been, I haven't been to Portland since 2013, I think. Or was it 2010? Might have been, no, it was 2013. I was in Portland. And I didn't see any of that going on in Portland at the time. But, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about Portland now. And yeah, they have the exact, if you tell the police you are not allowed to touch the homeless population, it doesn't matter what they do, property damage, assault on individuals, drug dealing, you can't do anything to them. What behavior do you expect from the homeless in that situation? All righty. It is 6:20. I think I've probably said enough to piss off what few remaining progressives I might have in my audience. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. It has been another fine Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. I will talk to you again later.